I just got back from a really beautiful family cruise. But you know what? I'm going to say something that might sound a little strange. There were times when I wished I was alone. And the funny thing is that when I do travel alone, which I have learned to do since my divorce in 2021, there are moments when I wish that my kids were with me. So today I wanted to explore this whole concept of traveling solo versus traveling with your family because I've been thinking about this. And what I've come to realize is regardless of which one we choose, we are going to miss something about the one that we didn't choose. Hi, I'm Lisa. I am a proud Canadian, a grandma, a mother of two adult boys, and a retired teacher. And if you're in this stage of life where you finally have a little bit more freedom, but you're also really deeply connected to your kids, your grandkids, your family, you just might feel this pull that I'm talking about because I know I sure do. I just lived it. And you know what's interesting? There was a time when I would have never considered traveling alone. But because of my divorce in 2021, and I decided I wanted to travel, I couldn't just wait for my kids, even though I enjoyed traveling with them. Because let's face it, they're working full time. One of them is raising children. The other couple, it was going to school full time. I mean, they were just super busy. And I'm the one with the flexible schedule and the disposable income. And so I thought, well, I can't restrict my plans to accommodate them. So it's either go for it or, sit on my hands kind of thing. And I thought, nah, I'm going to live my life. So I dove into traveling all by myself. And it was an empowering experience, but definitely learned some things about myself and what I do and do not like about traveling solo. And those things really came to roost this last week when I was traveling with my family. So I thought I wanted to discuss basically the pros and cons of both traveling solo and of traveling with the family. So let's start with traveling solo. What I really enjoy about traveling solo is, your schedule is your own. You can eat when you want, what you want, which restaurant you want to go to. You can sleep in, you can stay at a museum if you really, really like it for as long as you want. And that freedom, that flexibility in that plan is really, really nice. You can skip out on all the plans you've made and just change everything on a whim without all these negotiations with the other people that you have to do if you're traveling with a party. I also found that when I'm traveling solo, I tend to make friends because I'm not shy about talking to strangers and making um, connections with people. We end up having dinners in a big group together. And some of those people I'm still in contact with today through emails. When I'm traveling with my family, I tend to ignore the other travelers because I'm so focused on my family. Another advantage to traveling solo is you are in control of your budget. I find that when I travel solo, I'm more strict about what I'm going to buy. But when I'm with my family, how do I say no to my grandson when he sees something that he wants, or he wants to play one more game, or go on that water slide just one more time? I have a hard time saying no. Yeah, my budget is in much better control when I'm by myself. And another big one for traveling solo is I find it a lot more relaxing because you're not having to negotiate or accommodate other people's needs. And I think this is really big for women, especially who have spent decades accommodating others. You don't have to. You can let the people, the staff of the cruise ship, especially, because that's what I like to do, just pamper you. You can just have that quiet lounge by the pool in front of the window with a good book. I will watch the waves for an hour and it will go by like that because I absolutely enjoy it so much. So I think I come home more rested because there's that quiet nervous system reset that you get when you travel solo. But on the other hand, a disadvantage to traveling solo is not having that person to say, hey, remember when? You're not building memories with someone and making it meaningful. I'll never forget, I was teaching over in Dubai, and while I was over there, I did a little bit of traveling and I went to Egypt. I went to Cairo and I was standing in front of the pyramids. And all I could do was think about my boys and how they weren't there sharing this moment with me. And so, what should have been this inspirational aha moment became a moment of loneliness. I'll never forget that. And it's one of the reasons as to why I really strive to still travel with my kids as much as I can. Not all the time, but as much as I can, because I do want to build those memories together. I can't take money with me when I go, I can't take belongings. But what I can take with me are memories. And I can leave a lot of those good memories with my children, and they can think back on me going, remember when mom did this, you know? And when we're sitting around having supper, we do have those laughing moments. They weren't funny at the time sometimes, you know, but down the road, they do become, remember when? Let me be clear, traveling solo does not mean that I'm lonely. Every once in a while, you know, there's a moment that I would have liked to have shared with someone, and when it hits, it hits. A huge disadvantage to traveling solo is safety. I do feel more safe when I'm traveling with my family. And I'll give you an example. A few years back, we were doing a Mediterranean cruise, and about 3 days into the cruise, I realized somebody had stolen my credit card, not the actual card, but my number. And so the card that I had with me couldn't work anymore because somebody had lived it up in Paris on my credit card. So there I was without this credit card. And my boys, they came in, we got you, mom, you know, and they could be the heroes. And so that was such a wonderful moment. But I was grateful that I was with someone else at the time. And of course, there's always safety in numbers. I think it's another reason why I like to cruise because as a single woman, I do feel more safe on the cruise ships. Another disadvantage is that every decision is up to you. And in some cases, that's a great thing. But in other cases, it can be kind of mentally tiring as well. And so I noticed that on this trip where both my daughters in law are very organized and they took over part of the planning, you know, and making spreadsheets and making dinner reservations and things like that. So that was so nice having, you know, just to be able to hand over things to people that I knew were going to take good care of those things and say, yeah, they got it. That felt good. And then another disadvantage would be if you got sick, to be all by yourself. On one hand, I did actually get sick on a cruise all by myself. And in some ways, it was okay because then I could just stay in my room and I didn't feel like I was wrecking anyone else's plans because I wanted to just lay low for a couple of days. But at the same time, it would have been nice if somebody was there to kind of look in on me and I could feel that support. So that was definitely something I missed having. And a final disadvantage are what's called the single supplements. So even though you are just a single person in a cabin, a lot of these cruises, they base their costs on double occupancy. So this is why I end up bringing people with me sometimes. Like I brought some family with me, I brought friends with me to go on cruises because I'm paying the same amount for one cabin, whether it's just me in there or two of us in there. So why not? However, there are cruise lines that are starting to cater to the solo traveler, and they are creating what's called like solo cabins with no single supplement. So it's a very small little cabin, studio cabin, but they are creating programs for these solo travelers where they have their own lounge area. They have their own person who comes in and does like getting to know you kind of activities, providing opportunities for all the solo travelers to get together for dinners and do activities together. So they're really recognizing that there's a big group of people out there who want to travel as solos, and they're making the opportunities for them even better. Okay, let's talk about the pros about traveling with your family. I think the biggest advantage to traveling with your family is basically those shared memories, right? You're going to have laughter over things that took place for years, stories around dinner tables and campfires, you know, for years to come about silly things that happened during our escapades together. And one thing I recognize this time around is seeing a familiar place, like we went to Mexico and I've been there before, but seeing it through your children's eyes or now your grandchildren's eyes, and just getting to explore the same place over again in a very new way, which was really exciting because when we're traveling as a family, we're creating those emotional connections, the laughter, the bonding, the closeness. It's the meals together, the excursions together, the watching my kids experience things for the first time, like snorkeling or roller coasters or screaming their heads off on certain rides. It's those pictures that will live on in my head that a solo vacation just couldn't replicate. Of course, there's also cost sharing. So, sharing the cost of taxis or Ubers, hotel rooms, meals, things like that. And then when all of us are there together, we are each other's support system, sharing responsibilities, especially with the little kids, sharing organization, safety. There's obviously safety in numbers and we've got each other's backs while we're traveling together as well. And so there's that assurance there that there's people there for me and for each other that just feels good that you don't get when you're traveling solo. But like in everything, there's going to be some disadvantages to going with the family. And that's going to be that, getting downtime or alone time is tough. We're on group time. There's compromises all day long, like where we're going to meet, when we're going to meet, where is so and so. I remember on this trip, I actually said, I am not spending my entire vacation looking for people. So this becomes a tension point for some families I could recognize for sure. And speaking of compromise, having to do things that you don't want to do, like when you're on your own and you've got, like a schedule for the cruise, you can decide exactly what you want to do when. But when you're with a group, they don't necessarily want to do every single trivia game that there is, or they don't want to go to the sports bars. Some of them are drinkers, some of them are not. So it's constant compromise. And then when some people, their rhythms are a little different, do you have anyone in your family who's constantly late? So, and if your dinner plans are going to be affected by those people who are going to be late, or you miss an excursion because they're late, there can be tensions created in the family. This did not happen with us, but I'm just saying that this can happen when families are traveling together. I think my kids and I, we've traveled together enough to know that we like to be together sometimes and we like to be apart sometimes, and we respect that. So, for example, we went on a Mediterranean cruise a couple years ago and we chose the excursions that we wanted. We did that separately and then we compared. And some of the excursions happened to be the same, some were different. And so that was just fine. On the days that they were different, then we came back to the ship. Usually I was there after my kids were for some reason. I think I chose longer excursions than they did. And it was so hot and they were just like starfished on the bed in the air conditioned room going, oh, it's so hot, we're so tired. And then we'd go to dinner together and we would compare notes over the day. And that was just as much fun as going on the excursion together, because this way we got to do what we wanted to, but we also came together and did the excursions together when we had common goals and common interests. So it felt like a win-win situation. So my next trip, I know it will be solo, and I know that I'll be so excited to just be able to chillax on my own. But there will be moments when I'll go, oh, I wish the kids were here. I miss them. And then I know that when we do get together as a family, there will be moments where I'll be going, oh man, I need some alone time. So I have been very fortunate since my retirement in 21 that I have been able to travel by myself and with my family. Even lucky that my kids want to travel with me, just to be honest with you. And here's what I've realized, that solo travel does give us that freedom, but it costs us that connection. Whereas family travel gives us that connection, but sometimes it can cost us that freedom. And that no matter which one we choose, there will be moments when we will miss the other. And you know what? That's okay. It's not wrong. It doesn't mean we're ungrateful. It just means we're human. And honestly, I think it's a privilege to be able to experience and feel both, to have people in our lives that we miss when they're not there, but also to have a life in which you feel strong enough to go out there on your own and travel solo. And that is a beautiful place to be. So I'm really curious. Are there disadvantages, advantages to traveling solo versus traveling with your family that I have missed that you'd like to discuss? I'm also curious about your thoughts on traveling solo. I have friends who say absolutely not. They would never consider going on a trip by themselves. And, at one point in my life, I think I would have agreed with them, but I'm in a situation now that I didn't foresee. And just because I'm on my own doesn't mean that I want to give up on opportunities to travel. I'd be really curious as to what you have to say about that. Are you someone who really enjoys it, or is it something that you would never consider doing? So, in the meantime, if you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribing because this really does help small channels like mine. I hope you're not getting this blizzard. I cannot believe I went from 30 degrees Celsius weather to blizzard. But I guess that's just something that happens to you when you live in Canada. Have a wonderful day.